Hello, everyone, and welcome to Out of Nowhere. My guest tonight is Brent Thomas. Brett's having experienced several various paranormal events, such as ghosts, UFOs, and other strange phenomena. Brett has been on a journey to understand the worlds of strange and unusual. Can we please welcome Brent to the show? Hello there.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be back.
It's great to have you here as well. For the listeners who are new to your work, who is Brent Thomas and how did the paranormal portal come to life?
Well, I'm the creator and host of Paranormal Portal, which is two distinct shows. It's a podcast which is available on all the platforms, as well as a YouTube live streaming show, which is also on Facebook, X, several different platforms, Rumble. But that's more of like a variety show that I do 3 times a week and do live streams every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. Pacific time in the US. And that's where we cover a lot of different topics. I talk about news. I talk about some ghosts, some UFOs. I try to cover the whole spectrum on the live streams and just have a lot of fun doing it. So it's 2 distinct shows, but I've been at this since 2016, where I started doing an internet radio show called the Paranormal Portal on a Truth Frequency Radio Network back in the day. And then I branched off into YouTube and did live streaming at the same time as I was doing the internet radio streams. And then I branched off into podcasting. So that's kind of how it came to be. And I got into this because I'd had so many experiences, and it was funny because I was kind of a late bloomer. And I say this, I tell this story all the time, but it's so true. I was one of those guys that just never knew, what do I want to do with my life? And I did many, many different jobs, various different jobs, professional professions, did laboring jobs, did factories, did the whole spectrum. But I always felt like, I don't know where I belong. What am I supposed to be doing? And then I was working at a company that I worked at doing some advertising stuff. And I got to know a guy that was contracting there. And he was the owner of Truth Frequency Radio. And he just dawned on me one day. It's like, I want to do a show. And so I talked to him about it, and he goes, let's make it happen. And that's how it happened. And it was like, it was 2016 was when that started. So ever since then, I finally found where I belong. So I've been loving it ever since.
Have you ever, been on a paranormal event and been attacked or anything like that?
Actually I do investigations as well. Not a ton, but I've done several. And I've never really had the experience where I've been directly, I don't know if it was an attack. It didn't feel like really aggressive. It just felt very assertive. So the story goes, it was like 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, 2 years or 3 years ago, in Vernal, Utah. I was at a conference down there called Phenomena, which is a huge event. It's one of the biggest conferences on the west side of the United States. And I was there and met some friends who also have a podcast called Supernatural Station. It was Jaron and Roman, the creators and hosts of that show. And their family is from that area, and they're from that area down in Utah. And they're like, hey, after the conference one day, do you want to come out and check out our property? It's in the vicinity of Skinwalker Ranch. And I'm like, yeah, for sure. I brought my equipment. And we went out there and did some investigating with flashlight test, REM pod, recorders and stuff. And we investigated. It was a very active place. My REM pod, which is, it's basically this really tall hockey puck looking thing that screams and has lights on it if something gets close to it. And that thing would not stop. It would not stop. And I thought maybe it was broken. I was just like, I have no idea what's going on here, but it won't stop screaming. And so we were like doing that. I put up I just shut it off because it was like, I thought it was broken. And then we set up the flashlight, asking questions, lots of intelligent responses and stuff. Really incredible. Well, while we're on the site there, Jaron, who's one of the hosts of the other show, Supernatural Station podcast, he's standing next to me, and he and I are standing together looking at the flashlight. And suddenly he shoots forward. He goes, oh my God, I was just pushed. I'm like, oh, are you serious? And there was nobody behind him. His brother and Don, who was with me, were out just walking around and doing other things. And we were like, wow, that's really incredible. Well, we got done with the investigation after doing it for a while, had some great stuff pop off and interesting events. And then we drove 45 minutes back to the hotel, and I was rooming with Don, who was at the time one of my he used to come and co-host with me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I mean, we were already wiped out because it was a full day of conference and then up to like 2:30 a.m. doing the investigation and then back there. So we were wiped out. Well, Don hits the sheets in his bed and he's out like a light and just snoring. And I'm like, okay, well, I got ready for bed and stuff. I was exhausted and I laid down, and I'm a side sleeper. And I'm laying there and I'm just getting to the relaxed part where it's like, oh yeah, this is the stuff. I'm tired. I'm laying down. This is perfect. And the next thing I know, I'm just getting comfortable, and bam, something hits me in my back and rolls me onto my stomach. Like it hit me hard enough to roll me over in the bed. Now, I'd never experienced that before, but I was like,
No.
oh my God. So that's about as close to a physical. I don't even think it was aggressive. I think it was just something followed us from that investigation and just let me know, hey, I'm here. And I said,
Hey,
you're
did you
not.
have any marks on your back, or and how did you get back to sleep then?
Oh, I was absolutely furious actually, because I try to be really diligent about opening and closing investigations. I think that's important because, like you start out with prayer and affirmations and,
Yeah.
cleansing yourself and stuff. And then when you're done, you do this kind of the reverse and close it with prayer and affirmations. You're not allowed to follow me. Well, something did follow. So when that happened, I was just furious. I was like, you cannot be here. And I'm just mad as hell. And I'm yelling at it and stuff. And that was the end of it. And after that, I was so exhausted anyway that it was just, there was no way I was staying awake because I was already so running on fumes. So I just went to sleep. Now, there was no marks. There was no marks. The only other time that I've been attacked, kind of attacked, and it made me laugh when it happened, but and I'll have to send you some pictures of this. They're on my Facebook. But I was sitting in my studio here, and I'd been doing back-to-back interviews. And actually, I don't know if you know Tommy Collum of Let's Get Freaky podcast. He's over there in the UK. Okay, he's over in your neck of the woods as well. Great guy. And
Yeah.
I just got done interviewing him, and we were just talking after the fact before I had to go to my next interview, which was in like an hour later. But we're talking, and he and I started talking about this house that my studio's in, where we live as well. My wife and my youngest child live, and there's a lot of activity that's happened here. And so we're talking about that. I told him some of the history of the house, and while I'm talking, I feel this cold. Now this is in the summertime. I feel it's cold right next to me, like there's an AC vent blowing on me. I'm like,
Right.
oh, it's really frigid. And I told Tommy, I was like, wow, it got really cold right next to me. And then I'm talking to him, and suddenly I feel this heat, like a heat on my neck. And I'm like, wow, something's going on with my neck. And so I don't remember if I was still talking to Tommy or not when this happened. This is like a year and a half ago. And
Right.
but I reached up and felt on the side of my head, neck, and there was like a welt, a line of a welt going across to my jawline from the
Oh,
back of my neck. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I was like, wow, this is really weird. So I got done talking to Tommy, and I went and talked to my wife. I said, something's going on the side of my neck. What's going on here? What do you see? And she looks at it, and I'm wearing like a regular t-shirt. And she looks at my neck. She goes, oh. And then she pulls down the collar and go, oh. I'm like, what's oh. And
yeah.
he said, you have scratches all over your neck. I'm like, what? And I said, pull out your phone and take a picture of it. So she did. And I posted those on my Facebook, but there was like crisscross patterns of these huge scratches on the side of my neck that had happened right here in my studio. And honestly, I started laughing. I was like, oh, okay. Because I'd always heard stories, people getting scratched.
Yeah.
And then I experienced it, and it was like, oh, that's what it feels like. Okay. So for me, it was kind of experiential, and that maybe that's something broken in me, Bob, I don't know, but maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I should have been more disturbed at that, but I was just like, oh, that's what this is. Okay, I got it. And and soon that warmth turned into feeling like little mini rope burns all over my neck. And
Oh,
yeah, so they stung for quite a while after that. And then they faded after a couple days. It was enough to make them raise into a welt and a little bleeding, but not like profusely bleeding or anything like that. But I was like, wow, something didn't
and
like
did
me.
you ever feel it at the time?
Just the warmth was all I felt, was this weird ice cold and then warm on my neck. And I was like, what is that? That doesn't feel. And then I touched it and I felt the welts. And so that was when I was like, oh, okay, I just got scratched. So interesting experience. But I've like I said, I do investigate, and I think you've got to be prepared to have some interactions like that if you're going to investigate this stuff, because you're going to get a whole spectrum of different personalities that you might come in contact with. Some of them might hate you, for no reason, but others of
Oh,
them,
true.
yeah. Most of my experiences have been very positive, or at least benign, but those couple of them were more interesting, like,
Well, they
concerning
say,
but not fearful. I'm sorry?
you know, you've been a lot of paranormal places. What is the best place you've ever been?
I think my favorite investigation of all, and I've loved all of them because they all have unique experiences, and I think anytime you make contact or potential contact with some other intelligence that we don't really understand, and I'm not suggesting they're all formally living people. They might be something else. I don't know what they are, but I think it's really profound when it seems as though you're making very direct intelligent contact with something else. To me, that's incredibly exciting. But I think my favorite investigation ever was at a hotel in Spokane, Washington, which is called the Davenport Hotel, and it's like a palace. I mean, this is an old hotel from the 1900s early, and it looks like a palace in there. I mean, it's just gorgeous marble pillars. It's like you're in a castle. And we investigated there, my friend Charles Johnson and I, and we had some really cool stuff. A lot of incredible flashlight test stuff going on, communication, direct and intelligent communication for like 15 minutes straight down in the lobby of this hotel at 3 in the morning at a little lounge area. And interestingly enough, we were sitting there, these big leather wingback chairs. There's four of them around this low coffee table, and Charles was sitting in one, I'm sitting in another, and we put the flashlight, the K2 meters and sensors on the table, and we started asking questions, and then we started getting the flashlight responses on, off, on command. It was really powerful. But later, like right after we got done, Charles had one of those structured light cameras, and that's built off the Xbox Connect sensors. It's what you see on the ghost shows when they show those stick figures appearing on the screen, where it's like, oh, those are ghosts because look at the stick figure. But we had gone through the whole hotel with this thing before and got nothing. But right at that table, right in the chair opposite of us afterwards, we mapped one figure, and it was sitting in the chair right opposite of us, right where the flashlight was. Like that was where this intelligent spirit was hanging out and continued to hang out. So it was really profound. I love that investigation.
I bet you did. I want to talk about a bit about ghosts.
Okay.
Are, are ghosts the spirits of dead emotional imprints or something else?
Yes. In other words, all of the above. I think, we have these terms of convenience. Oh, something's happening in my house. I'm not seeing what's doing it, but something's happening. It's a ghost. Well, what is a ghost? And a ghost can be a lot of things. It could be somebody that was alive that's for some reason they're lingering still rather than being in the next realm. They're staying here. It might be tragedy. It might be just emotionally attached to a place, a location that meant a lot to them in their life. It doesn't always have to be negative. They just are lingering for some reason. So that's a potential of what could be a ghost. There's other things I think that we experience in a spiritual manner as well, but that were never human beings. And that could be both positive and negative. It could be elementals, it could be shadow people, it could be things from legends and lore around the world, like things that we experience, like fae and other things that might come across as spiritual interactions, and so on and so forth. Could be alien, extraterrestrial. There's a real blur between spiritual contact and extraterrestrial contact. There's very high similarities between the two phenomena. So I think that there's a potential that sometimes people think they're dealing with a spirit when actually they could be dealing with an extraterrestrial intelligence, or
Yeah.
they think they're dealing with extraterrestrials when they're dealing with spirits, really. So there's a whole spectrum of things that can be ghosts. Another thing is inter or extra dimensional entities. They might be just out of phase with us. It might be a frequency variable where we don't see them, but they're still able to kind of interact in our frequency as well. And so they would seem like ghosts to us. There's time variables, like we could be looking at different phases of time and able to come in contact with them every once in a while. And so we're not actually experiencing a ghost. We're the ghost to them. They're the ghost to us, because we're not quite in each other's realm completely, but for some reason there's a variable happening or a shift that's allowing this communication or contact to some degree between different timelines. And then there's another possibility that they are what are called egregores. An egregore is something that is manifest by expectation or belief. And there's been some really cool studies done on this in parapsychology circles. I think it was the Stephen or something like that, the Stephen Project out of Canada. And it was a group of parapsychologists that decided they were going to create an entity. And so
Yeah.
they came up with this huge story, this huge backstory of this person from the 1600s, and gave them this whole huge narrative. And they meditated on it. They kept putting energy into it. And soon, after a period of time, they started having this entity show up when they would do investigations and seances, and it would tell the story that they created. There's plenty of examples of this. How many hotels have you heard of that have the jilted bride who was left at the altar, and the groom never showed up or left her abandoned, and so she went back to the hotel and threw her lot? Or the mother, the destitute mother with the baby at the bridge, and they tossed the child, and sure enough, now there's a crying baby happening at a bridge. And so it's like, if enough people believe in a story, does the story become something of itself? Does that energy coalesce into some sort of consciousness? And that's what an egregore is. So it's what is a ghost? Any or all of those, or still more that I can't think of?
Yeah. One of the questions we're going to ask is, why do certain locations seem to trap the paranormal energy?
I think there are some locations that are probably more prone to it, and it could be something to do with any number of variables. Certainly mineral content, high levels of quartz, water seem to be like almost like these psychic batteries. But anything can hold an attachment. If you think of like haunted dolls, there's those are an object holding an attachment. Haunted objects can be somebody's favorite, hairbrush can have an attachment, and certainly houses can do that too. I think what we forget to realize is that we are energetic beings at our core, and all of the spectrum of our emotions doesn't just exist within these meat suits. We are constantly emanating these energies into the environment around us, and these energies can imprint on the world around us, whether it's a house, whether it's a location, whether it's, any number. It could be a car, could be something that meant a lot to somebody and they loved it, and so they imprinted on it. So I don't know if there's, then there's the ley lines, of course, that are another principle to consider in these
Yeah. I'm going to say
situations.
ley lines in some
Yeah.
places.
Yes. So there's any number of variables that might assist the propensity or the intensity of that, but I don't think it's necessarily necessary to have those factors there either. That, I mean, there's plenty of houses that seem to have an intelligence of their own, with hauntings and stuff, and they don't necessarily live, exist on ley lines or have a lot of quartz content or water running nearby, any of the normal variables you consider. So I think those imprints can happen anywhere.
Yeah. Janice has just got a question here.
Sure.
The day after my old friend passed away, she spoke to me, her daughter. It came through an intercom. Do you think the dead hang
Around.
around us for days after passing?
Yeah, that's really interesting, Janice. And I think there's many cultures that have practices very much geared around that. That's like in Slavic cultures, they have what do I want to say, an observation where they cover all the mirrors around the house of that person who passed with black cloth, and it's because it's believed that dead linger for a series of days or a period of time, but I think it's 3 days that they have to keep this black cloth over the mirrors because they don't want the spirit of this loved one to get stuck in the mirror realm rather than go to the next life. There definitely seems to be a trend that following a passing, spirits, I'm pretty sure, do linger for a while. I had this experience with my own father when he passed. I was out here in Idaho and they were back in Minnesota, but I had these incredible dreams of him, because we had a lot of unfinished laundry between us, when he passed. And it was really hard, because there was things that I should have said and wanted to say, but never found the time to say them. And then he passed when I was out here, and I was like, oh, I got to carry this for the rest of my life. The things you shoulda, coulda, woulda done, but now you just get to deal with the fact that you didn't. And I was really mourning that personally. And he came to me in dreams, and I met him in dreams, and those dreams were so real
Real.
and so profound. They were more real than me sitting talking to you guys. It was just incredibly powerful. And I woke up just bawling, but I'd finally had that closure. Now, skeptics could say, oh, it's, the subconscious mind coming to terms with all these things. It was a mechanization of that and your own grief and whatever. But I'm telling you, it smelled like him. It felt like him. We embraced and we had this conversation. He never talked with his mouth, but I knew all of his thoughts in my head. It was like it was telepathic for him. I was saying things in the dream with my mouth and with my mechanizations. But and he also stuck around my mom for a long time, turning on and off her TV, turning on and off his TV, and a number of lights going on and off, channels changing, just some strangeness that had never happened around there before, and a whole bunch more. But we might have fixed time. But I will say that it's interesting how you mentioned the intercom, because there does seem to be a connection between electronics and spirits, and maybe it's just by virtue of spiritual energies being energy, that it's not a big stretch for them to interrupt or manipulate energetic processes around them, like the flow of electrons through wires, or mimic remote controls or whatever. But it's very incredible, and I definitely believe they stick around, and it's not necessarily a determinate amount of time. Like for my dad, he stuck around for months and months and months, and then finally seems to have transitioned. Some are around for days, some are around for weeks, and I think it's just up to the individual spirit whenever they're ready to, okay, this is okay, I can go on now. And I think, I'd like to think that it's usually a measure of love and just keeping an eye on us, because the deaths affect us so much more than it affects them, I'm sure, because they're aware of their experience and they realize they're hey, you know what, I'm going somewhere, but I'm not ready yet. I'm gonna take care of my loved ones, make sure they're okay first, and then when I know that, or I feel good about that, then they can make that transition. I think that they have to release us as much as we have to release them to their journey, and with love and compassion. And yeah.
I'm sure. Do you think ghosts can cross through portals or time slips?
I think for sure, I definitely believe in spirit portals. I think that that's a real thing. There's energetic gateways, whether they are manufactured through ritual or if they're naturally occurring. I think that that happens as well. Everything boils down to energy, and so I think both. For the time ones, I'm not so sure. Maybe they seem to there seem to be plenty of instances and experiences that seem to have spirits telling or letting people know about future events. So maybe they're much more open to the timelines around them than we are. And so they can see things that haven't quite happened yet much more clearly than we can. But again, I don't know. I don't know if well, sure. I guess both. Yes, they can probably move through timelines as well because there's plenty of cases of people encountering ghosts of prior timelines. But it might be more of again getting back to what is a ghost, and it might be some time anomaly that can happen where we're the ghost for them and they're the ghost for us. And I'll tell you guys a story. This comes from Mike Rick Secker, who's a wonderful guy. I had a great interview with him on my show, but he said he was talking to the Perrin family. He was very close to the Perrin family, of course, who owned and lived in the Conjuring house. And I think it was Andrea Perrin was telling him this story that she apparently got up one night in the middle of the night, and she said I guess she was going down, and I'm going to be paraphrasing this, so if it's not exactly accurate, I'll get the meat and potatoes of it, but I might screw up some facts. But she went down to the kitchen, like she was going to the kitchen to get a drink of water. But she said she turned the corner, and when she entered the kitchen, it wasn't the kitchen she knew. It was like a much, much, much older version of the kitchen with a huge fireplace in it. And in front of the fireplace, which had a fire in it, she saw these like 2 or 3 people seated on chairs facing the fire, and they were just kind of sitting there, and they were dressed up in much older period clothing and stuff, but they were there, and she was there. And she said, as she stood there going, what the hell's this? One of the people in the chairs turned around, saw her, knocked on the guy next to him and said, will you look at that? So it was like they were each other's ghost, like they were in their time and she was in her time, but they had a shared experience. So somehow the gap was bridged. And so did the spirits move through time? Maybe not, but some kind of anomaly happened in that moment where both timelines were open to each other. And I think that that's profound.
When we talk about that, do you think time slips are accidental or they're controlled by something?
Well, I think it could be both. I'm kind of a big subscriber to the idea of what's called non-Euclidean space-time. And I realize that's a big word, but basically it just means that all time from the initial advent of all things, the Big Bang, if you will, to the eventual collapse of the universe is all happening in this one now. And so all of these events from your birth to all the experiences of your life to your eventual death are all happening in this one now. And time is more of a construct of us to keep track of things. I don't think that time in our understanding exists actually in the world. I think it's our awareness that moves through experience and we perceive that as time. And I don't know if that's making sense, but essentially the idea is that all things exist in this one eternal now. And I forgot where I was going with this. What was the initial question? I'm sorry, Baba.
About time slips.
Yeah.
So accidental or controlled by something.
All right. So I think thank you for redirecting me because I go out into places in my head. But so I think that there's a possibility of naturally occurring time slips where for some reason these different phases of time, which maybe if you thought of them as a vibration, like there's a beginning vibration at the beginning of all things, there's an end vibration that's probably a higher vibrational rate than the beginning, and they're all happening now. So for whatever reason, two segments of that could bubble together for some reason. Like it's almost like time and reality is this dynamic thing that expands and contracts and weird things happen in it. And that's kind of what I think of with time slips, that they could be very naturally occurring just as a dynamic of this weird non-Euclidean space-time. Again, there's that term. But I do think that it's possible that it can be manipulated. Sure, I think that time travel could be possible, whether just through our intelligence being able to traverse time or us physically to be able to traverse time. I think that both of those are possible. I don't understand the mechanics of it or how that would happen. I would suspect that if it is more of like a frequency thing, there must be some way to change a bubble of our frequency to a different frequency variation and perceive different times. But so, yeah.
I know it's so strange.
Yeah.
Shadow figures.
Okay.
Shadow figures are reported worldwide. Why do you think they are so universal?
I think, it's the one thing that really blew me away getting into this stuff. Before I got into it, I thought I knew all about it and it was going to be fine. Then I got into it and started going down these rabbit holes and realized how big all of this is. But one of the things that comes up all over the map, and this could be cryptids, it could be, ghosts, it could be alien, UFOs, but there's a commonality. There's a commonality that happens all over the place. Take for instance, Bigfoot. Now, Bigfoot was this, when I first learned about it, it was this one weird phenomena that happened in the Pacific Northwest of the United States or North America and Canada. So it was there. But then as I grew, I learned, no, it's all over the North American continent. And then as I grew and understood and learned, no, it's also in Australia as a yowie. Oh, it's also in China as a Yeren. Oh, it's also in the Russian Alma Mountains as the Almas or the Almasties. And there's names for these things all over the world. There's the Woodwose over in the UK and in Europe, the Grogok, the Gray Man. So many different terms that seem to describe these very large, hairy humanoid beings. And it just it became worldwide. In my understanding, it already was, though. Same thing with ghosts. Every culture in the world has stories of ghosts. I mean, there's and these are cultures that were never in touch with each other, actively. There were, as far as we know, there was no contact between them, but they all came to the same conclusions. Then there's stories of these little people, little gnome-like beings all over the world. These small creatures, whether they're, duende, gnomes, pukwudgies, and any other numbers of names that there are for these things. That doesn't mean they're all the same thing, but they're these diminutive creatures. The Homo floresiensis over in Indonesia is another one, and the Ibu Gogo in Indonesia, and so on and so forth. So there's a universality for that. So the idea that, the shadow people would be universal across the globe doesn't surprise me at all, because everywhere has concepts of ghosts and hauntings. Every culture, every religion, every faith, they all have ghost stories. And so if we experience shadow people here, what would make it so specific to us in the US or over in the UK to experience them, but not anywhere else? Because I think, honestly, and this is honest to God, my true take on this, if we had perfect vision suddenly and we could see all of the spirits and spirit realm around us, we would probably collectively poop ourselves, because we would find that we are absolutely swimming in a world of spirits. Oh. And I think largely, maybe a lot of them aren't aware of us either. They're kind of doing their thing in their space of this spirit world, but we're doing ours. But sometimes we meet and we have these interactions. I will say that shadow people, I think, get a real bad rap a lot of times. I think there is some sort of being that's largely considered shadow people that are very, they seem to be very malevolent. But I've covered so many stories, including Hatman stories, and talked to people who have had what seem to be very positive interactions with them. So I don't think they're always universal. And maybe they're not the same thing, but they just they're dark, shadowy, and they look humanoid. Well, that's shadow people. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's any number of things that appear dark and shadowy. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all that there's a global recognition or awareness of them.
Yeah, one of the questions is, are shadow beings entities or interdimensional travelers or projection of the human fear?
They can be. I think it could be any of them. The one thing about any of this stuff is we don't know. Nobody knows. There's lots of people that'll pat themselves on the back out there and say, well, I'm an expert. Just ask me. I know. Or, and I'm not putting down psychics. Don't take this the wrong way, but there's some people out there waving that psychic flag or contactee flag, and they'll tell you all day long that they know exactly what's going on, what all this stuff is. But, I require more than that personally, that, just an individual claim, but we don't know what this stuff is. Could be ultra dimensional, extra dimensional, interdimensional, could be spiritual, could be something else. We just don't know what this stuff is. We just have terms of convenience, again, like ghosts. Ghosts, it's a ghost. Well, but a ghost could be any of those things that I was talking about before and more. So we don't have the ability to know which of those it is, but it could be any of them. And that's what I always tell, anybody I'm talking to or my audience on my show is like, look, any idea that you have is just as valid as any idea I have, or even if it's a doctor or an astrophysicist or whatever, any idea you have is just as valid as that. Because if you often hear people say, well, I use the scientific method. And it's like, well, if people really use the scientific method, then you have to allow, by the scientific method, you have to allow for any eventuality or any possibility until you can categorically remove it through scientific testing and repeated procedure. And none of this is repeated procedural testing. None of it can be, because we can't actively study this stuff in a laboratory like setting. We just can't. Maybe some aspects of it we can, like maybe understanding matter and understanding, a lot of nuances of our reality, but, nothing can be deleted as a possibility. So anything is possible.
Janice was just saying, do you think we could ever stay in a time sleep? Because she would love to go back to the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, God, life is so complicated now. It'd be nice to go back to like the 80s or the 60s or something. Yeah, I can understand that. I don't know. I guess probably not, because there's certainly people that have had the experiences. There's a whole ton of them around like Liverpool. There's an alleyway in Liverpool that has a lot of time slip experiences by many people. So and go on and on and on. You can research it online, but it doesn't seem to be something people can anchor in and stay in. But it's neat that they're able to have a glimpse and to have an experience with that other timeline. I think that that's very powerful. But at the end of the day, you're a product of this timeline. You are the matter and the frequency of this timeline, and something might be in flux enough to shift you over to another one for an experience. But I don't think you can just go, well, I'm staying here. This is my new home. It'd be nice. I can think of many reasons to go back in the time and stay somewhere that I loved. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's probably possible, but who knows?
Have shadow figures ever been linked to UFOs or Bigfoot encounters in your research?
I'm sure that there probably have been any number of Bigfoot sightings that were experienced as shadowy apparitions. The thing that makes it real tricky is that I think spirits can appear how they want to. They can appear like a little orb of light, or they could appear like a 10 foot tall humanoid shape, or a cloud, or a mist, or any number of manifestations. So it's possible that some Bigfoot sightings are actually a spiritual sighting, because people see this thing peeking out from behind a tree most times, like tree peeking, it's called. There's a tree and they're peeking out and then going back. Well, you saw a shadowy head. Are you sure it was a Bigfoot? Just because it's higher on a tree, like in the 8, 9 foot range, does that make it a Bigfoot, or could it be a spirit, or could it be any number of things? So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that shadow people could be part of that. And it's most Bigfoot experiences are literally 3 seconds long. Like that's pretty much the average experience of anybody seeing a Bigfoot. It's usually 3 seconds long, and most sightings are not really close. They're quite far away. Most of them just see a black form that looks larger than a person. But does
That's
that
right.
make it a Bigfoot? Yeah, it's anybody's guess.
True, yeah. Do you believe Bigfoot are flesh and blood creatures, or interdimensional beings, or something else entirely?
Well, this is the tough part. I have trouble with this myself, and it's not because I don't believe it's possible they could be any number of these other things, but I think for the sake of the discussion and for the sake of pushing the narrative forward, we have to start somewhere. And the one place that I think we can safely start is they are a physical being, at least sometimes, because they leave footprints, they eat stuff, they break stuff, they throw stuff, they manipulate the environment around them in a very physical way. They drop hair, they drop scat. There's any number of of experiences that people are seeing them as a very physical being. So I think it's safe to say that yes, they're physical, but that doesn't mean that's all they are. It doesn't mean that they're just physically they're able to have a physical form and they're anchored here. Could they be also extra dimensional, whatever? Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, they could be. They could have access to some ancient methodology that we've long since lost, or maybe we never even knew. That might be very, very unique to their species, whatever they are. They could just be incredibly good at camouflaging, like a cuttlefish. I mean, who knows how they can just disappear like they disappear. But there's an argument that they could be extra dimensional or extraterrestrial, even, or spiritual. Could be a profound spiritual manifestation, like seeing grandma in the kitchen, except grandma died 30 years ago, but she's there, as real as you or me. Maybe they can manifest like that and they're a spiritual being. Again, could be any of them, but I think it's safe to say that yes, they are physical because they leave footprints. They eat. They've been observed eating. They
yeah.
hunt. And all of these things. If they were just spiritual, they wouldn't need to do any of that and wouldn't probably do most of that. So that's the starting point, I think, is to let's all agree that at least they're physical. Doesn't mean
Oh,
they're physical
definitely.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like you say, all the time or not.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
have you encountered any Bigfoot stories that genuinely unsettled you?
Yeah. 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 There's one that really, really, really bothers me. And it's one I really almost wish I never heard, because I like the idea of thinking, oh, Bigfoot is this elder of the forest, this the keeper of the wild spaces, and I like that. That's romantic and wonderful. But
Yeah.
there's horror stories attached to these things too. The one that I'm thinking of, and I think it was out of Brown Springs, Texas, or Oklahoma, one of the two. I can't remember exactly where, but it was a story that was shared by Bear and Coonbo of the Bigfoot Outlaws from back in the day, and it's really disturbing. But do you want me to share it?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to get your approval first. So the story goes that
Definitely.
a man and a woman that were dating, or they were very romantically involved, wherever, were out in the Brown Springs area. I think it was Brown Springs, and they were parked, and they got frisky on the hood of the car. And as they were getting frisky on the hood of the car, I guess a couple Bigfoot is what was reported, by what they could see for prints and physical evidence. And apparently this was investigated by law enforcement as well. So, but they apparently came up behind the guy, and I think tore his head off and threw his carcass off, and then proceeded to forgive me, but have their way with the woman until she was no longer alive. So
Oh God.
yeah, yeah. I mean, what do you do with that? That's absolutely nightmare fuel. But
Oh
it's one of
God, it
those,
is.
yeah. And yeah, they found parts of him around the area, and she was obviously very brutalized, and she was at least for a portion of it was alive, and yeah, that's horrifying. So
Oh,
yeah,
terrible, terrible. That in it.
yeah, yeah. It's and that's the thing, like I said before, I'd love to believe that they were the gentle forest giants and keepers of the wild places, elders of the woods, or whatever. But you can't ignore those stories, and not even just that one. Let's say that that's not even real. You still, I think, have to tip the hat to the First Nations, the Native Americans, who have stories of both kinds, the wonderful kind that they could trade with, and then the ones that would raid their village and take women and children never to be seen again. So
Mm.
and these are histories, or at least legendary histories that are maybe thousands of years old.
And
So
sometimes they call them the forest people.
yes, yep, yep, yeah, and I think that's common with a lot of different tribes around. Like for instance, we all know what orangutan is, right?
Yeah.
But did you know that orangutan literally translates to orang is people and utan is a forest, so they are the forest people.
Ah,
So
right.
yeah, so it's very common in a lot of cultures to call these, different beings a people.
I just want to touch on a little about werewolves, dogmen.
Werewolves. Sure.
Do you ever see werewolves as a myth, uh, psychological phenomenon, or a misunderstood reality?
I- and I hate to use it again, but yes. And the reason why is because I think it can be all of those things. I certainly think there are very genuine, real, organic sightings of something physical that also, you hear tales of them being very physical and interacting physically with the world around them, but they could be spiritual as well. They could be something out of legend and folklore that just is, projected. It could be, any number of things. So I don't know if that we can say that any of this stuff is just one thing, because certainly in all of this different stuff, whether it's cryptozoology or spirits or whatever, there's many various behaviors represented that would seem to suggest that all could be true. Again, the dogman kind of stuff, I'm not sure that dogman is the same as a werewolf, but it might be. It seems to be a potential, that it could be something that is spiritual as well. And I'm gonna defer. Out of Florida, there was this African American guy who was he was doing a Facebook Live, and it was very interesting. And I don't know if you've seen this footage, Bob, and I'm maybe you'll recognize it as I discuss it, but he was talking on his Facebook Live about seeing this wolf thing in the backyard that was on two legs behind his house in Florida. And he was just talking, I don't know what it was, guys, but and then at some point during his live stream on Facebook, he opens the back door and says, "Yeah, it was out there." And he aims his camera out back. Now out back, there's like a period of grass that was, seemed to be cut, or at least a low cut field of some kind.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
there's some kind of light pole, and it's evening, and then there's like woods behind that. And he goes, "Yeah," and he kind of zooms his phone and goes, "Yeah, it appeared back there." As he's doing this on the Facebook Live, literally this white misty figure that looks exactly like a werewolf, has articulated joints. It looks like it's made out of fog, but it runs by this light pole,
Oh God.
and it was live. And so what the hell is that, right? And these are the head scratchers. So, and honestly, that was the one piece of evidence, because it was on a Facebook Live. you can't really fake that, Uh,
No.
you'd have to have an elaborate setup to pull that off. And this is just some guy, in his house talking about, seeing some kind of werewolf thing and then going, it happened out here. And as he's doing it, and he literally freaks out. You look at his reaction. He's like, it seems completely organic to me. He like slams the door shut and goes, Hannah, and he's just having a moment. And that was the footage that really made me go, well, maybe they really are something spiritual or energetic. Because now, interestingly enough, with the dog man, and I learned this from Kerry Arnold, who passed away now, but he was the host of Bigfoot Odyssey along with Daniela Aiello. And he said that in some First Nations here in the US, these dogman creatures are regarded as guardians of portals. That they are guardians of portals. And I had never heard that before. So I was like, wow.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So maybe there's something to that.
But why do we always associate a full moon plays such a powerful in transformation stories? They always say there's a full moon round, they're going to be out. Werewolves are going to be out.
Sure. I think, honestly, I think there is really merit to the whole full moon making people crazy. I used to work in corrections, Bob, and as a corrections officer, we always were very cognizant of when the full moon was going to happen, because you can bet your last dollar that was when it was proverbially going to hit the fan. That something was just going to go crazy. Now, interestingly enough, I think it was the whole term lunatic comes from that, that whole idea of a full moon. I think it comes from Greece. Some observers of I don't remember how it comes in, but that I think that term comes from ancient Greece, lunatics, and it has to do with worshipers of the moon or whatever, and how they would have these bizarre rituals and go crazy on a night when the full moon would happen. So yeah, I think there's a lot of merit to the full moon, and certainly if people go crazy around that time, is it not possible that other things would go real crazy at that time too? I mean, what is it? Why not? If people go wacky, couldn't werewolves or dogmen go wacky too? Sure, it makes sense.
Do you think, like Bigfoot, werewolves, lots of different creatures around the world have always been there back in time and come through? Do you think they come through portals to come and visit us?
Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot about this that it's hard to wrap my head around, because one thing that I always do is try to challenge things versus logic, but discussions like that are hard to apply logic to, because they require an understanding of mechanics that we don't understand. So, I mean, it's a leap of faith. Do you think things could come through portals? Yeah, I do. I don't understand how that works or what that means or how those things happen. But yeah, I do. I think that, any number of things. There's spirit portals. There could be physical portals. I've certainly covered enough shows, enough witnesses, and read, articles telling of stories of people themselves being transported to a place on a path that they walk daily, like a nature path, for instance. There's this one couple, they had this path, nature path behind their house, and every evening they would go for a walk and do this same route, just religiously. That was their thing. The end of every day, they'd go on this walk through the nature path and then back home. Well, one time they went on this walk in the nature path. Then there's a part where they turn a corner, and they said suddenly they were in absolutely unfamiliar territory. They'd seen this path that they knew hundreds of times. Suddenly they don't recognize the trees. They don't recognize the path. It seems almost like they're in a different ecosphere, and they don't understand what happens. And reflexively, which is the saving grace of these people experiencing this, because this comes up all the time, the people finding themselves in these instances go, oh, and they take some steps back, and boom, everything is back to normal. So they hit some kind of transition there, some barrier they passed, and were suddenly in unfamiliar places. There's stories of people going in daytime and finding themselves suddenly in the night in like a jungle when they were in a forest in North America before. It's just crazy, some of the stories. Now, again, you have to take a leap of faith on any of those, because how do you quantify that? How do you prove that? And I don't think it's probably possible, but if you believe that, I mean, if you take the whole body of reports of people claiming to go through portals, and you take maybe there's 1,000, maybe there's 2,000, maybe there's more, but if only one of those reports is true, that really means something huge is going on, even if only just one. But what if it's more? What if it's most of them? So depends on where you're at in your own personal paradigm, but I always leave the door open to possibility.
Oh God, yeah, you've got to do. What about astral traveling?
Sure. Yeah, I think I think we are by nature multidimensional beings, and that's a part of our multidimensional reality. It's just our lives are loud. Our lives that we live are loud, and they're full of overstimuli of sounds, sights, experiences. And so we've numbed ourselves to our multidimensional reality. And certainly astral travel is something that I think everyone could learn to do. I think that dreaming perhaps shows us a lot of that we are making a journey to something. Obviously, a lot of people consider dreams, and I think in a lot of cases, dreams are garbage. Sometimes it's just weird, odd, stupid things, but sometimes they're incredibly profound, and sometimes they're incredibly lucid, and sometimes you can, write symphonies or solve problems in your dreams and come back. And, so maybe that's another aspect of our multidimensional self.
As though you're flying through air. I've
Yes.
had that.
Those are
I
my
felt
favorite.
like that many a time, flying through air, and I think, where am I going now? I seem to be going down this tunnel.
Oh,
And
okay.
then all of a sudden, and then after a bit, I wake up and I think, oh God. And I felt a jerk as though I've been put back in bed.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah, and I think,
sometimes those sometimes those tunnel of light stories go a little different.
yes, they can do, yeah. But it's just, when you look at things like that, can we do that now?
I think
Can we travel through time?
again, I think it's possible. At least probably astrally, if you could learn how to astral project and become proficient at it. I think it's like remote viewing. Remote viewing's been shown to be valid, whether it's in the same timeline or a different time periods, that these remote viewers can go back and look at historical events and describe things very clearly that they're seeing, or at least pretty clearly enough to show that they were, at a place that no longer exists, but they're able to describe it pretty profoundly. So that suggests that we have the ability, at least with our mental selves, to traverse time. But I hope it's possible that someday we can do it physically as well. But yeah.
Exactly. What you got? What you got planned for the future?
That's a great question. There's a lot of things I guess the paranormal portal is always, it's always an organic thing for me. There's a lot of things that I hope to do with the shows and to do professionally with doing this stuff, but whether I can make all that work or not, I don't know. But I'd like to do presenting at conferences this year. I've attended a lot of conferences, but I think I'm probably getting ready to present at conferences. If those opportunities should come up, I would certainly love to explore that. I'd like to do a lot more investigating. This last year, I really intended on doing a lot of investigating, but I only got out a few times with Charles. So hopefully this year we'll be getting out and doing more investigations. I like to stream those as well whenever I can to the live audiences. Those are
that would be great if you could do that.
Yeah, I've done it.
Out in locations.
Yep. I've done it a few times, taken the audience with me and given them like an hour or two of the live investigation, and it's really been fun. I've really had some neat stuff happen, and it's actually kind of comforting to bring everybody with too, because when you're in one of those places that just doesn't feel good, it kind of really helps to bring a lot of friends with you. So yeah,
And
I mean,
you do get a lot of regular people on your shows.
oh
In the
yeah.
chat
I mean,
room.
I have a huge core audience that has just been wonderful, and they've really supported this dream for a long time, and I'm incredibly grateful. I think it's an amazing thing to have people's trust in that way, that they make you a part of their world, and to me that's the greatest honor. Like when I start doing a live stream, or if I put out a podcast, and to see those numbers come up, and I know that that means people are listening to it, and making whatever I said or whatever my guest said part of their days and weeks. That to me is the greatest honor. I'm just so incredibly blessed.
Because they can listen to the show anywhere in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, literally, quite literally.
True.
And there's a I've been very fortunate to have an audience that is global. I really am humbled by that, because I largely describe myself as an idiot with a microphone, and I'm always I'm always stunned that people show up to listen to what I have to say. So it's an incredible
Yeah,
thing.
but it's good, isn't it? Because it you might be interviewing somebody who you think, oh God, he's never done that one before, or they're
Sure.
new, and it's nice to have somebody different on your show.
Yeah, yeah. It is. It's a lot of fun. I also love that part of it though too. I mean, just meeting people like yourself and so many other hosts. And when I started doing this, Bob, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to compete with everybody and crawl over the corpses of their bodies, to get to the top. But I've met so many incredible friends, and these amazing relationships, and I'm so glad that that's how it turned out versus what I expected. That I thought it'd be just this uber competitive space where people would be just trying to stomp you down while they're climbing up. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's been the absolute opposite. Everybody's just been really wonderful and engaging, and I love how we support each other, and try to raise all the ships at once rather than just one.
Yeah, because you're always going to get the odd one who'll disagree with you wherever you go.
Right. Yeah.
What a load of rubbish you're talking about. And I say, well, everybody to their own.
Yeah.
If you
Exactly.
never, if you've never been out on a sky watch, or you've never been out in a forest, you won't know what it's all about, then, will you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm from Minnesota, and I moved out to the Pacific Northwest here, and I'm I knew the forests back home in Minnesota. I was very comfortable in them. But when I moved out here, it's like there's grizzly bear out here. There's there's mountain lions
More,
and things like that. And it's
or
like,
other things, yes.
yeah, and when you're getting out in the deep woods and stuff, you're on the menu if you're not careful. So I mean, it's just it's an incredible thing. My hats off to all those people that go out Bigfoot researching regularly. I'm I'm too beat up and brutalized through a lot of years to get out there and hike up mountains and stuff. But my hat's off to anybody that does that
See,
regularly.
we're quite lucky in the UK because we don't have animals like that. We get the odd. I've seen the black panther in down this
Oh,
area.
have you? Okay.
Um, oh yeah, I've
Oh
seen
yeah.
it. I've seen it one night coming back.
Ooh.
So 2017, we were in a car
Huh?
coming back down the road, and we weren't ready for it. 'Cause you never are really. And
Yeah.
and Paul didn't have a camera in his car. In them, it was just one of them old cars he had.
Sure.
And we were just going down. He went, "Look at that, right in front of the car, straight across the road." And it's an edge and gone with a really long tail. And I
Oh,
thought, what's the chance of seeing something like that?
yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But
I think that's
usually, but
go
usually, if you go into a woods in the UK, you're not going to see a bear,
right.
or you might see some unusual.
Yeah, that's the thing about the wild places. I think anything's possible. I mean, again, I know there's several groups in the UK that are actively looking for Bigfoot over there, and they
Oh
found
yeah,
some incredible evidence to suggest, yeah, they're over there. So,
werewolves where we are, we've got werewolves sightings
oh, do
since
you?
yeah, there's been a few sightings since 2017 to 2021.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Yikes! Be careful over there.
22 and 23, been
Yeah.
lots of sightings around the Pacific area,
Yeah. That sounds
and the
amazing.
and the area where we go has been seen there,
Oof.
and it's
That's
mainly October, November, December, and January. Them
oh,
sort of time of year
okay.
when things have been seen, and then the odd time somebody saw it in the woods during the night, and the next time he saw it during the day, one early morning.
You know what's fascinating about that too is that, oftentimes people believe that the Samhain season or Halloween season is when the veil between this world and the next is the thinnest, but uh thaumaturgists and other esoteric practices believe that the veil actually gets the thinnest all the way through that and climaxes at its thinnest point around the Yule season or Christmas. So that kind of lines up with your werewolf sightings.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. There's been more sightings of UFOs this year again already.
I think everywhere has been seeing a lot of those. This area that I'm in is also a hotspot for UFOs. It's where I saw my UFO, the saucer that I saw. Yep, a lot of them
Yeah,
up
it's
here.
just amazing how when times change and you think, oh, we won't see. And whenever you're not prepared, they
Yeah,
always appear in the sky. And by the time you've got your phone out or your camera, it goes.
yeah. Although there's some
It,
pretty convincing videos out there now. I mean, you always got to run the risk of, oh, is it AI or not? That's the tough call. But yes, I imagine some of the what we're seeing online is real and genuine. I've seen some pretty impressive captures that I think might really be real.
oh, I'm sure. We had a sighting at Bempton. We didn't see this one. A fisherman, there were a fishing competition on, so that would be September,
Hmm.
quite a few years ago, and they're all fishing over the top of cliffs into water and everything. And one turned round and thought, what's that combined harvester doing in that field?
Hmm.
And he said there were a bit of a gap, and he said it was like it was being lit up underneath it.
Ooh,
And he said it
thanks.
was a UFO. He said it were a UFO. And he said, believe it or not, we all threw his rods down and we all ran away and came back the day after to
Uh-huh.
collect them. They were so frightened of this. And this was on top of a hill.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
said it was definitely it was a UFO what was landing.
That's the creepy part of them. We don't really know what they want. Maybe they're looking for people to hoover up and take away. And I don't think I'd want to be on that journey. That sounds a little too much. But I
It
I
just
was
makes you wonder when, I'm one of these people like Paul. I wouldn't have ran away. I'd have liked
mm,
to have watched. And if I could get some photos of it, I would have done. I don't think
oh,
I'd have gone anywhere near it.
right.
I'd have
Yeah.
tried to take some evidence of it.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be a really incredible experience for sure.
Yeah, because I think I don't think we'll ever get disclosure. I think it's a bit of a myth now.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I don't know that we need it anymore because I think it's become I think the amount of disclosure that we've gotten is enough. That was like the tipping point because when you get the United States Navy going, yeah, we recorded these things, we don't know what they are. That's pretty good as far as the disclosure meter is concerned because it's an acknowledgement that they're acknowledging they don't know. They're seeing things they don't understand, and that to me is very powerful. And you can even see that the tone has changed whenever it does become something of newsworthy, like a newsworthy event. It's no longer, well, now we're going to go to Phil, who's over at the trailer park talking to the locals who had a craft land in their yard. And it's all these chuckles and dismissals. Now they seem to be presenting it at least with a little more like, yeah, well, somebody's seeing lights over there in wherever. And it's not a punchline anymore. And I think that that's powerful. But when oftentimes you'd hear the arguments like, oh, well, we can't have disclosure because people will lose their religion and it'll be chaos. People won't be able to handle it. But when the Tic Tac acknowledgement came from the Navy of the Nimitz and the other incident from 2014 and 2006, it was barely a blurb. And that kind of showed me people are ready for it. I mean, and most of us, I think, or a large number of us are expecting it because we've seen things or we've heard enough information to go, yeah, there's something happening. We're not alone. And I think people are much more ready than we're given credit for.
Janice has just put a question here. In Suffolk, that's in the old American Air Base, there's been sightings of large insect-type creatures.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I got to tell you, of all the extraterrestrials I could meet, that would be the one that would freak me out the most because I don't know, when I think of insects, I'm not thinking of something that's real emotionally there. It just does insect stuff. Like, I'm hungry, I should eat something. Oh, there's something to eat. And that's like an insect's life. And obviously if they're building interstellar craft or whatever, they're a little bit beyond that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're real full of love and goodwill. It just means that they got smart enough to build something. So when you're looking at insects, are you getting the wise sage, or are you getting the one that wants to chew your head off?
That's absolutely true. Just get me diary.
Oh.
Just to see who's on Friday. Oh, it's Richard Freeman this Friday on my show.
Nice.
Great fella, great. I'm sure we're going to have a fantastic time with him on Friday the 16th. Let's have a look, see if I can find him somewhere. I've probably got them all written down somewhere. Right, let's have a look. Oh, Richard is a cryptozoologist, author, journalist, web TV presenter. Right, yeah, so we'll have a fantastic show. He's written loads of books. So he's on Friday, the 16th of January at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific, and 7 p.m. in the UK. So thank you for coming on the show. It's been good listening to you. I think it was a couple of years since you were last on the show again.
Yeah, that's great. I really had a lot of fun talking to you again, Bob. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yes, thank you. And I'll talk to Paul about you getting him on his show.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
So thank you again for coming on. Thank you to everybody in the chat room, as always. It's always nice to have people in the chat room as well who want to ask questions. So good night and God bless wherever you are around the world. Bye for now.